So we all piss each other off. We inherently have conflicts. And control is underneath a lot of those conflicts. Somebody just commented on something I wrote that control seems to be the biggest problem in intentional communities. And I agree. Because everybody's trying to protect themselves. We're all trained however we were raised, the culture we were raised in, whatever's happened to us in our family life and relationships. We're trained to try and protect ourselves and hopefully also trained to serve people. And that's inherently a problem. But if we're really honest about that up front, if we're self-aware enough to see how we deal with things, like I was just talking to a guy recently, and he said he believes, like genetically, that he has anger issues because his father has them, his brother, he does, and if something triggers him the wrong way, then he goes into an anger response. Now, it was interesting as I thought about that and I was listening to him. First of all, that's fairly self-aware that he knows he has that response, and therefore hopefully can develop mechanisms to control that, which he was talking about. And I thought about my own way of doing things, and my own way isn't immediate anger. If something isn't what I want, or feels bad, or hurts, actually, I have no response. Which is not necessarily good either. I tend to stuff stuff down, you know. I deal with shit as it is. But then, you know, that can eventually become something that frustrates me enough that then I might explode and deal with it in an inappropriate way. Not with anger, but with actions that would not have been necessary if I would have been more skilled in my communication about saying, this thing that is occurring is not serving me well. I do not enjoy it, or something is wrong. Can we work through this and come up with mutually agreeable solutions? I mean, a lot of what I talk about is institutionalizing solutions that work for everybody, so we skip 80% of problems anyway, right? That's my bigger thing I usually am talking about. But we're still going to have interpersonal reactions to people. Like, there's some people, you meet them and you just don't like them right away. And that's because you recognize in them something that might even be something that's in yourself. You know, sometimes we dislike people the most who are the most like us, which is a rather confusing and interesting thing because you'd think we would like them more. Probably depends on the exact attribute. But I think these are, we can catalog these types of problems. And rather than have a community where we just get a bunch of people together and say, oh, well, let's just have natural law and we'll all be nice people. Instead say, okay, let's do the real work. Let's catalog every type of personality defect we have because of how we were evolved or how we're trained in the technological world that we built up. You know, the inherent problems we have, and then catalog those and find what are various sets of solutions for those, and what social agreements would we make to be around people who have said, we're going to do things in this kind of way. You know, that seems like it would work. And I understand that most people don't have a level of awareness or experience to understand what I'm saying. But some people do. If you've hosted lots of parties, if you've been involved in like extended families and then other extended families, some festivals, although those are short term and so they barely count really, you know, they're not long term. Or if you've been involved in various communities and stuff, then you've seen some of the various many problems that we can have. Well, if you're understanding what I'm saying, comment and mention like which ones you see that bother you. You know, like in the spiritual community, spiritual, delusional, you see lots of sexual abuse, right? Because this person has the authority of God and they use that to coerce people sexually, to manipulate them. That's something that I believe can be completely avoided by not having spiritual authorities. by not even believing in any spiritual world would be preferable. But even for those who do believe in some level of spiritual world, they could put limits on their spiritual authorities and say, well, for example, you could say, well, you have to be celibate. That's a little bit weird because that can cause other fucked up behaviors because you're going kind of against most human nature for most people. But the point is that you can mention in the comments, what are the common problems you've seen in the relationships you have? And of course, you're responsible for some of those, especially if you've had a relationship where you have the same problem over and over. Well, then you are either selecting the wrong people or you are causing the bad behavior. So, if the common denominator is you, it's you. And I, of course, have to wonder about that myself, But as I start to invite more people again, this is a conversation that's going to be had a lot, and I want to codify that conversation. I don't want to have that conversation individually with each person. I want to create courses, systems, social contracts. And so you look at things like nonviolent communication is one thing in the tool set. And I've listened to a bunch of ebooks on that and stuff, and I mostly like it. I have a little bit of a negative reaction to it. It sounds kind of artificial, but then again, any new culture we come up with is going to be artificial. Anything that isn't just, let's have shit be as fucked up as it is. So, radical honesty is another thing I like quite a bit. That could also be something negative or positive. Just because you want to be radically honest doesn't mean you have to say every goddamn thing you think. And I would love to have like radical honesty workshops and nonviolent communication workshops. And there's other systems of kind of artificial culture, of social agreements that I may have not even heard of. So please do recommend those that you're aware of, because I would like to have a menu of lots of alternative ways of doing things so that we can build a different culture. And that should be plural, cultures. So we have various options to pick from, because some people just aren't compatible. That's okay. They should be matched up with different people. See you later.